Okay. Hey there, everybody. This is Mandy and Karis here with the Purposeful Woman podcast. I wish you could have been here actually just a second ago because we thought that we were live and then we weren't live and then we thought that So, okay. So now that our technical difficulties are over with, we are so excited that you are here on our 5th podcast, and we are talking all about boundaries. We've got some amazing stuff to talk about, which just like we do every single day, and we're just humbled that you are here joining with us and that you chose to be here with us. So again, thank you. If you would like to share this, we've made this public, so you can share this video with anybody that you would like to right now, because I think that it is something that all of us deal with. And it's whether we want to admit it or not, seriously, right? So yeah, please feel free to share it and share it with your friends, your family. And while I'm at it, I'm also sharing on my Facebook page, and in our group. If you don't know about the Purposeful Woman group, you need to be a part of it, because if you are a woman with purpose and you're a woman, I mean, those are like the two main criteria, right? You have to have purpose and you got to be a woman. So I think we're good with that.
It's all you covered, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we want you there with us. We share all kinds of stuff in there that we wouldn't share on our personal pages. And so we would love to see you there. So again, I'm Amanda Middleton with AmandaMiddleton.me, and this is Karis Snyder with KarisSnyder.com. We're just so happy that you're here. So let's dive into boundaries. What are boundaries? Yeah, so I know Karis has the definition of boundaries there. So let's just go ahead and define boundaries right now.
All right, so here's a couple of definitions. A boundary is a mark or a limit of an area, a dividing line. Let's see what else this says. It's a point or limit that indicates where two things become different. Boundaries are for protection, to keep people safe. Boundaries can be guidelines, rules, or limits. So those are just a couple of definitions of what boundaries are, and that's kind of what we want to talk about, is putting that line, drawing that line in the sand of what boundaries need to be for your life, for your family, for maybe your work or whatever. And we want to talk about why we have those boundaries, what they're for, how do we have them, what does God say about boundaries, and not even just that, but talk about two aspects of boundaries. Yes, we need to set boundaries, but we also need to kind of step back and say, are there boundaries that I need to respect, that maybe someone in my life has put there that they want me to respect? And so just as we want people to respect our boundaries, we in turn want to respect the boundaries that are around us. So those are kind of some of the things that we want to talk about today. And we know, like Mandy said, this is a sensitive subject. It's a hard one to talk about. It's so easy for us to put boundaries, with people that we know are dangerous, or things that, especially as moms, that would cause our kids to be in a dangerous situation. But talking about boundaries with, your family, your friends, your coworkers, those are hard things to talk about. And it can be a little scary sometimes. And so we know, even for our own life, boundaries are hard for us. Yeah, and they're necessary. They're so important. And just because it's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't have them. So right. I guess, right? So, why? Why do we need them? Maybe I'll let you kind of talk from there.
Yeah, well, we all need them, one, for our sanity.
Yeah.
I mean, And I know I talk about this all the time, but it goes back to this, there may just be triggers in your life at that time.
Yeah.
And you've just got to set those boundaries so you can get away from those triggers, and somebody may trigger you in a certain way that is not good, and it may result in you saying something that you shouldn't, maybe. And to prevent that, you've got to put up some healthy boundaries.
Right. Yes.
There's definitely healthy and unhealthy, and just like Karis was saying, there's two sides to every coin. I like the way that she says that, because it is. I mean, you have to have boundaries, but where are those boundaries coming from?
Right.
So, and there's seasons in your life. There's seasons where you're going to have more boundaries with some people than you would with other people. And it comes back to your triggers some days. It comes back to what's best for you and your family. And
right.
And I guess that's a good place where we can start is, when are they unhealthy? When is it truly not a boundary? It's truly not a boundary whenever it's not coming from a good place. If it's coming from fear, even self-doubt, stuff like that. Now, I mean, like Kara said, we've got to be smart as moms. We've got to be smart as just humans. You're not going to walk, let your kid walk to school with a complete stranger. I mean, just that's a boundary. That's a good boundary.
Good one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a duh boundary, I mean, that's one of those like, duh, man. Yeah. But it's those boundaries that with people that are closest to you that I think can get really kind of sticky and in murky waters, don't you think?
Yes. Definitely.
And, sometimes the boundary that somebody sets is not necessarily about you. It's something they're going through at that time. They've got a trigger going on, and they've got to back away from it so they can move forward a little bit.
I mean, just even, as we've talked about anxiety the last couple of weeks, and you may be coming out of, or you may be in a season where you have some serious anxiety going on. And so it could be anything. It could be anxiety about, for example, if you have social anxiety right now, there's some things going on, and you are not comfortable being in crowds, and maybe you've got family or friends that are wanting for you to go to a concert or to a movie or to go out to eat to dinner at a really loud restaurant, and you just may not feel comfortable to go right now. And that's a healthy boundary for you to say, you know what, I cannot do that right now. I would love to hang out with y'all. Could you come to my house instead? Or could I come to your house? Like setting that boundary to protect you, because you're still working through that. And so that helps you to continue to overcome that. Mandy and I were talking through this before we got started, and maybe you had some things going on in your life. A lot of people deal with alcohol, drugs, different things like that. And so a healthy boundary, of course, for you as you're overcoming that, is not to go hang out at a bar, with your friends, because that is not a good environment for you to be in right now, because you set that boundary to help you overcome that part of your life. And so to throw yourself back in there when you're just coming out of it, it's really may not be the right time for you. So that right there is a healthy boundary. Now, I would say, and maybe you would probably agree with this too, like an unhealthy boundary is, I want to be a mean girl and exclude some other girls from something. Right. So I'm going to put a boundary up and say, you can't be involved in this meeting, or you can't do that, or whatever. Now that is an unhealthy boundary for sure. And that's just not a good boundary. And then even another unhealthy boundary would be when, we all do it, ladies, we're scared to let people know what's really going on inside of us, because it may scare you, or we don't know what they're going to think about us, or we just don't want them to know. So we put up a boundary, more like a wall, and we're like, we're not going to let you in. We're not going to let you hear this.
Prequel, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole time that you were talking, and it's discernment for your own convictions. That's
Yes.
really what it is, you know, and you've got to use discernment. You've really got to pray through it, and you've got to realize if this is healthy or unhealthy, because there's even times where I've had social anxiety and I've had friends go, no, you're coming out with us. You are. And that was the time where I needed it, you know,
Right.
and they listened too. And that's the key too. You've got to surround yourself with people that are talking to God too. You've got
Yeah.
to surround yourself with people that have that discernment and know your convictions and know, okay, well, she's struggling with social anxiety. Is she hiding, or is she actually struggling right now? And
Yeah.
those are when your friends and family come in, and and you know, you take it from those ones that are closest to you. Well, you do.
Right.
You
Yeah.
may put up a fight, but you know, I mean, but you will take it more. And so those people that come and say, no, you're getting out of this house and you're going to stop wallowing in it. And, you know, that was unhealthy at that time. And they knew that. And so they were there to pick you up. That is so key to stuff too. And, you know, just like I said, and it goes back to, you know, you've got to surround yourself with people that are for you, not
Right.
against you, that are for you, that are praying for you, that want the same goals as you do. And if those people are not part of that circle at that time, a boundary needs to go up.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody needs boundaries. I even need boundaries in business. I need boundaries in family. I need boundaries with friends. I need, you know, and there's even certain boundaries that you need with your spouse or your, you know, your kids. I mean, there's not as many boundaries there. You're pretty open with stuff like that, but still, there
Yeah.
still has to be some healthy right there.
Right.
That's the key to all of this is healthy.
Healthy.
Use discernment, you know your convictions, know what send you spiraling, know what triggers you at the moment. I mean, I may not have the same triggers as I did a month ago, but
Right.
that's called growth. And so that means that those boundaries and putting up those boundaries for those triggers, it worked.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, it's not working.
Right.
I mean, that's with anything, don't you think?
I absolutely think that. And I was just sitting here while you were talking about it and just thinking, you know, why do we struggle so much with setting these boundaries, you know, with people in our life, you know? And I think sometimes, and this is maybe some of y'all out there, we want to set boundaries, but we're scared. We're scared of, are we going to make them mad? Are they going to push back? And are they going to belittle my boundary? And, you know, a lot of times we say, this is my family. I can't set boundaries with my family. Or we'll say, this is my friend, or this is my coworkers. You know, are they, if I set boundaries with these coworkers, are they going to quit? Are they going to turn people against me? Or, you know, just like with your kids, for example, and your family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, or whatever, and you feel like you need to set a boundary for your kids when they go somewhere with them, you have to trust that, just like Mandy was talking about, if you set that boundary in discernment and you believe that that's how God wants you to raise your kids, then you have every right to set that boundary. You have every right to set it. So it's not up to you on how they receive the boundary. It's up to you to set the boundary. And if they can't receive it, if they can't respect it, then in that instance, you may have to pull back some. You may have to, you know, talk more about it. But we can't make people receive it. All we can do is set it. And so, you know, we can't let fear hold us back from that, because like Mandy was talking about, when you're using discernment in your life, there's a reason, you know, that God shows you, hey, you need to set a boundary here. This is overpowering, you know, if, especially with a coworker, your work life is overpowering your family life. Or, you know, I made you the parents of these children, It's your job to be the parent, not them, not whoever else. And so, you have to do what is right. And so we can't let fear of what are they going to think or what are they going to say stop us.
It's hard.
It is hard. It's so hard. And we get that. I mean, fear just grips us and it'll cripple everything in our life. But I think, maybe I think if we set it and if we try to explain it to them and say, this is why I'm setting the boundary, it's not because I'm mad at you. It's not because of this or that or the other, but this is the why behind it. A lot of times when people know the why behind it, they don't have to agree with it, but if they want to be in your life, they will respect it. They will respect it. You've said it, and then you just move forward from there. So I think that's important, that we don't put that pressure on ourselves and that fear, because then what can happen is they become codependent on us, we become codependent on them, and we're constantly
a healthy situation. Right.
And yes all the time. And it's okay to say no. Like, that's not a bad word. Like, no is not a bad word. It's good.
And I have to say, I'm a former people pleaser. I mean, and seriously,
I'm working on that, by the way.
I would do things all the time to please somebody all the time. If somebody said, I'm gonna probably just totally screw this up, but I think it was Jen Hadamaker, maybe, I'm not sure. I don't always like everything that she has to say. Some things I do, some things I don't. Just like with anybody, you may not have what I have to say either some days, but she said, if it's not a hell yes, then it's not a yes.
Right.
Because if you're not going to put your whole into it, then it's a no. So that's one thing to think about too. And, like I said, I can go into that trap so easily with people pleasing. But I remember a pastor saying one time, well, he said it a lot, and he would say, if you don't like the sermon that I'm preaching, you need to take that up with God. And now I can say, if you don't like what I'm doing, you need to take it up with God, especially if I've gone to God with it and he's told me, you need to use your discernment. You need to get out your convictions. You need to put up those boundaries. You need to this. And does it hurt? Yeah. Does it hurt other people at times? Yeah. Does it hurt me to see them hurt? Absolutely.
Right.
I'm not human. I mean, but I know that if God gave it to me, then I got to run with it and I got to roll with it. And do I always do what he tells me to? No, I should. I don't know why we don't. But bottom line is people are going to be mean. They are. They're going to question why you're doing certain things. Some of them are not going to understand. Those may not be your peeps. They may just be going through a period of growth too, and that may be what they needed to hear at the time, or maybe the boundary that you put up was what they needed to go through that God planned, the whole time. So if you're not listening to what he's telling you to do with this other person putting up a boundary, you could be holding them back from another blessing too. That kind of, So, I mean, it may hurt, and people will hurt you. That is the sad, honest truth, but they're human. They're not, and some of them don't even mean to. They just do because they're human. Or, bottom line is they've got to do what's right for themselves, their family, their time, their work through God. And as long as they went to God with it and asked for that boundary, you can't argue with it. You seriously can't.
Right.
And they do hurt, especially if those boundaries are being made against you. I think I've said, or I've talked about this at one time, but, sometimes you don't go to that person and you say, this is why I have this boundary up, or this is why. You could be going through certain things, or just life gets, or whatever the case may be. I don't know, because you can't always go to that person sometimes. But I can remember there was long story short, there had been some things that had happened with extended family, with other people in the church as well. And I lost a friend, excuse me, or I felt like I had lost a friend at that time. And I put up walls. I did. I put up more than boundaries. I put up walls and I just clamped them shut. I didn't want to be hurt again. I was done. Didn't mention it to her, didn't say a thing to her. But this is just a prime example of people that are in the word with you, that are praying for you, that know your boundaries, that know what you've been through. She stuck through me. She stuck through. She stuck by me. She was afar, maybe arm's length away, but she was always there. Something happened. She didn't always call, but she would text. Everything okay? What do you need from me? Of course, some days I was the mean girl and I wouldn't text her back, or I wouldn't, I wouldn't say anything. Or sometimes I would just say nothing. Thank you. Love you. That's it. Mm-hmm. Well, then those texts turned into more and more, because she knew how to kind of just push just a little bit and push up against those walls, not my boundaries, but the walls. She was making them come down. I have to say that person is still in my life. She's still one of my very best friends. I don't talk to her every single day, but I could pick up the phone right now and say, I need you right now. And she'd be right there.
Right there. Yeah.
But she knew my boundaries. She also knew the difference between my boundaries and my walls.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important for you to surround yourself with people that are they're for you. They're not against you, they're for you.
Right.
But the sad part is there are some people that are going to be against you.
Yes.
It is.
So. Well, I mean, even if we think about it, Jesus was not liked by everybody.
Right.
I mean, even his own hometown turned against him and, hated him. And so, but, and I know, he is perfect and he is our example, but we can learn from him. I mean, God of this universe is not liked and is not loved by everybody. And it is a lie of the enemy that he tells us that we have to please everybody, because that's just the Christian thing to do, to keep the peace and, be kind and be loving, or whatever, be loving. But the truth is, if we are friends with people, and we have to speak the truth in love. I mean, and we can see examples of that all through the Bible. I mean, we were talking about how in Matthew 12, even Jesus set a boundary with his family when he was preaching and speaking, and his mom and brothers came to him and wanted to talk to him. And he said, this cracks me up, in verse 48. He was like, who is my mother and who are my brothers? I mean, he's just like, who are they? And then he said,
it out there.
I know. And then he stretched his hands to the disciples, and he stretched his hand out to the crowd. And he said, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. So even Jesus set a boundary with his family. I mean, so that speaks volumes to me. And I learned a hard lesson about boundaries with a certain area of my life, just within a business that I was in, really involved in a few years ago. And I taught these ladies, and this was not against them, this was all me, because again, I wanted to please everybody. I wanted to help everybody. I wanted to be there for everybody. And I'm thinking, if I'm not there for them, they're going to think bad about me. They're going to think I'm this awful person. And that was not true. But, they would text me at midnight or at 10, 11 o'clock at night, or they would constantly text me, and I would immediately pick up my phone and respond as fast as I could. And so I taught them to treat me that way. I taught them that they can message me at any time, and I'm going to answer immediately. And so that was not the right thing to do. And so I had to, when my business began to grow, I couldn't do that for 100, 200 people. I couldn't do that anymore. And so I had to back up and set a boundary. And it's harder to back up and do that, but it was hard. and it did take time, but in doing that, I retaught them something. I taught them that their time is important too, and that people should respect their time just like they were respecting my time. So as I was reteaching them how to treat me, it was also teaching them how others should treat them. And so it worked for everybody all around us, because I was teaching bad behaviors to start with, and then we relearned that together. And it just
changed, right? And you relearned it together, right? That was the key, right? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
it's the truth, and seasons change, and that may have worked for you at the beginning,
right?
And it did, obviously, but with every business that I have, I will tell all of my employees or whoever's working under me, this is called growth. I mean, we've got to grow no matter what, personally, physically, mentally, spiritually. I mean, that's what this world's about, or that's what this life is about. We've got to be better than what we were yesterday. If you're, everyone needs to be growing. So and learn things in the process, and you learn those boundaries, and then you learn the difference between walls and boundaries, and then they collide.
Yes. It's great.
And that's the key too. People treat you the way you teach them, or the way that you treat them. If you start leading with heart, they're going to lead with heart, and isn't that what this whole faith is about too, is to lead with heart, and that's it. And yes, there are going to be some people that get their feelings hurt in the process, because they're human. We all have feelings. We all are sensitive in some ways, more sensitive, some of us more sensitive than others. Karis and I have said we're probably the most sensitive ones at times,
Oh, yes. Feel everything. We can feel everything.
Right. I mean, and I'm sure y'all are too. Whenever you have kids, you get even more sensitive with things. I mean, it's just how it is, and how you perceive it, how you deal with it.
Yeah.
But that's with everything. It's with everything. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, is leading with love, leading with heart, having these types of conversations, because they're hard. Boundaries is hard. It really, but we make them harder than what they truly are.
Right. Yeah. I think so. I think even just starting out with a simple boundaries, are there things that you need to look at in your life where you need to say no to? A simple one, simple for all of us, would be your social media time. That is a great way to start for you. Where am I spending hours of my time on social media where I could be doing something else, or I could be helping someone, or maybe I need to rest, or maybe, I could go do something with my family, or be spending time with my husband. Is that social media taking over your time? So that could be an easy place for you to start there, setting boundaries, setting boundaries with your kids and in your marriage. I mean, of course, those are going to be harder and take some more time, but you can look at things in your life and say, so where do I need to start putting boundaries? Because they're so important, and they can protect you, and they could keep you from getting into a hurtful situation, a dangerous situation. And I would even say, challenge all of us to look at not just where we can set boundaries, but where have boundaries been set for me? So in my job, where has my employer, or if I am the employer or whatever, where has that boundary been set? And am I overstepping that boundary? Am I pushing too hard because I so desperately want them to see something in me? So maybe I need to say, you know what, I need to look at this boundary and see where maybe I'm overstepping, and back up. And so I would say to do the two sides of the coin this week in our life: set a boundary and look at where a boundary has been set and respect it. And so I think once we can get into that pattern and take those baby steps, it'll be so much easier. And like you're talking about, when we get free from wanting to constantly please people, and we're looking to please God and do what He's called us to do, because at the end of the day, His opinion is the only one that matters.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when we're not gripped in that fear, it is easier. And even, you know what, you could message a friend, and me and Mandy have done this. You could be like, Mandy, I'm about to set this boundary. You better pray. Or, I'm going to go talk to my family, or I'm going to go talk to my sister. These are my kids. This is important. So you can even text that friend, those group of friends that you let in, and ask them, pray for me. I want to do this. This is a healthy thing, and I'm ready to make this change so that my life can be better. I can go and be all God's called me to be, because your time is no longer wrapped up in pleasing these people and keeping them happy.
Right. And you got to set your priorities. Priorities are key. I mean, if you're spending the majority of your time on social media, but that's not a top priority of yours, then why are you doing it? But we've all fallen into that social media trap, have we not? I mean, social media can be used for good, as in like right here, or it can suck you in and draw you in, and it's not always what it seems to be on social media all the time. So then you get drawn in, and that can cause a trigger. And that's the kicker right there, is you got to figure out your priorities. You've got to prioritize your life, to get anything done, you've got to. I'm an organizer. I know that not everybody is an organizer. I get that. But in this situation, you kind of have to be. You really do. You do. You've got to know what's important, and take it 5 steps at a time, or 1 step at a time. What's your top priority? Okay, well then knock something down the list,
Right.
Just go to 2 priorities. Okay, well knock something down the list. It always helps me to write it down too. I know it sounds cheese balls, but it is what it is. Yeah. Write it down on a piece of paper and start knocking those, put those priorities up there and start knocking those things down that don't need to be there anymore.
Right.
But go to them. I keep notebooks like this everywhere. Go to them all the time, though. Go to them at least once a week, because your priorities are going to change.
Right.
I've got 3 kids under the age of 8. At one time, they were under the age of 3. So I had to, every week, every day it was changing. Y'all know, whenever you've got kids change by the daily.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that growth, and we should be changing daily too. So you got to write it down. You've got to weekly go through it and knock some of those priorities down that you had last week. You may not have this week. Stay organized with it. And I know I just totally lost some of you by saying organized, but that is one thing that you need to do it for your health more than anything, because if you don't, you're going to have those walls up instead of boundaries up. And that's whenever it becomes unhealthy. Yeah. And then just like Karis was talking about, putting those boundaries up for other people, that's hard, but it's also hard to be on the receiving end of that boundary. Yeah. Like, okay, what did I do to deserve that? But you can't go inward. You seriously can't. You can't go inward, and this was rough whenever somebody said this to me. Not everything is about you, Mandy. Just because I did that doesn't mean that it was about you. It was about me. And that hurt, because I was like, ooh, that was kind of a little self-absorbed, but and it's not always about you. It's about what they're going through, or what the boundary that they had to put up for that week, or it may change next week. It may not change for 10 years. I don't know, but all you can do is pray with them about it and just know that it's there, and be that friend that I had, that was just there, but she also she knew without a shadow of a doubt, not because she knew me very well, But it wasn't just because of that. It was because she listened to God. So she knew between boundaries and walls. She knew. Yeah. So she was like, okay, I'm going to tear down your walls, but I'm going to respect your boundaries.
Yeah.
Here, so it's hard to be on that receiving end too, but just know it's not always about you.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah. I mean, just like we're going through stuff, other people are going through stuff too. And this came into my head, and just like a three-way thing, what is a boundary where I need to put up to say no to something or someone? And then what is a boundary that I need to set where I'm saying yes to something that God wants me to do, and I'm making time for that? And then what is a boundary, third, that I need to listen to that has been set because somebody is going through something, and maybe they're trying, and it's a protection for me, or so just to listen to respect them and say, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be a friend. And when it's time where this boundary can move, then those things can change. So, it's just something in our life that we can say no to, yes to, and listen to. And I think if you can look at it in that manner and not, like you're saying, look at it in a self-absorbed way, but step back and look at it in that way, how much different could we operate as a body of Christ, as a body of believers, and just as people in general, if we treat each other that way and know, okay, this is not about me. This is something they're going through. And them in turn, looking at your boundaries in that same way. This is not about me. This is what she needs to do. And I'm going to respect that. So, yeah.
Right. And it just, I know I keep saying that. I mean, we're all selfish in some ways. I mean, we're
human nature.
Does it make it right? Absolutely not. That's whenever it comes in and you've got to go to God with it. That's between you and God. And that's part, I know I keep saying it, it's part of growth.
Yeah.
You've got to grow. And if this is making you grow, you got to do it. If it's not, and it's setting up a brick wall and you're pounding it, no, that's not growth. You're holding yourself back from something bigger.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with everything that comes onto my plate, and you can relate to this, all of you can, because you're moms and you're women in general. Women we carry a lot of hats. With everything that comes onto our plate, at times you got to let something go, and that doesn't mean that it's got to be let go, for forever. It means I've got to bump this up to my priority list right now.
Right.
And, I will tell you one that stays true, my top 10 priorities, the first 3 is always going to be God, my kids, and my husband. Always. Yeah. Always. Those will never move. But other things are always going to be moving. And it's funny to watch. I do a lot of I take a lot of snapshots too, of course, on my phone, everything, honestly, but I'll take little snapshots of my priorities for that week and to watch them move and to see, like, even a year ago, that priority that I had last year, it's almost like a prayer that came to pass, and I can look at it and go, oh, wow. I mean, like, I prayed about that. It was on the top of my priority. I didn't realize how much it affected my whole year. You know what I mean? So it's almost like your individual little prayer list too,
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, hopefully we have helped y'all somewhat today.
Yeah.
And I know we've helped ourselves too, because it always helps us to talk about these things, because we're all thinking it. Yeah. I guess just me and Karis are going to say it sometimes.
We'll say it out loud. We'll do it. Gosh.
We've got big mouths. I mean, I'm going to look on and see what y'all are saying really fast. And thanks for all of the shares, guys. Again, if you would like to share this out, it's made public so you can share it. And you can invite other people to watch it, just because, I mean, we all go through stuff like this.
Yes. All of it. Yes.
Yes. Notebooks and sticky notes are my friend, Vanda says. Yes. Notebooks and sticky notes are my friend too. I've got them plastered everywhere. Grace says, I think we get self-absorbed because we want to fix what we did that was wrong. And yeah, that's a good point. But, you know, I think Chris can also agree with this. Sometimes you just can't fix it. It's
No.
with them. And it's just like, you know, my husband, you know, he wants to fix anything and everything that comes my way, or my mom wants to fix it. And it's not their job. They can't, you
Right.
know, because they just can't. They're human.
Yeah.
Um,
And I would even say too, what may be in your mind that you think needs to be fixed may really not need to be fixed. It may just be,
right.
you know what I
Right.
mean? I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying to
Yeah.
y'all, but like it may not be that it needs to be fixed. It may just be, okay, this right now, these are our boundaries, not in a bad way in this friendship or in this working environment or whatever. It's just, this is just the season that this is in right now. 3 months from now, it could be different, but it's not that it needs to be fixed. And I like to fix things. I like to control things. I like, you know, whatever, for everybody to like me. But in that season, it may not be that it needs to be fixed. It may just be that's just the way that relationship is right now. And it may not be as close as it was before, but 3 months from now, it could be completely different and you could be best friends or whatever.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Grace also says, did you set up office hours? I think this is something I do to others and others do to me. That is a great example. Yeah, I mean, I do have to say, I do set up some office hours, but again, it changes.
Yeah.
Week to week, it changes. I know that some people will talk to me and go, you know, like if they question something about a certain part of the business, and it may take me a couple of days to get to them. It's just because I wasn't working on that part of it, and I knew that I couldn't give them my all. But the next week, that schedule changes. I don't ever give anybody my schedule just because I don't know what it's going to be. So that's something that you're going to have to probably work out for yourself, and you know, just see what's best for you that week. And it's funny that you actually mentioned that, because Chris will say every Sunday, so what does your week look like?
Yeah.
You know, as far as work goes.
Yeah.
And I'll literally have to sit down and go, okay, well, I've got a meeting with this, or I got it this or that, or this or that. And then I just kind of have to mentally make a note of, you know, what I can and cannot do.
Right.
And that's the thing, because whenever you sit there and say, I can't do this because I can't give you your all, I think a lot of people are going to respect that.
Right.
You know?
And and that is a great question, Grace, from you. At that point in my life, when I was constantly answering people, I did have to set a boundary and set hours and say, you know, like from 7 o'clock on, I'm not going to be answering my phone, just because I had to set a hard boundary, because I had to learn how to break from that habit.
Right.
And so I did set that boundary. And I also had to learn, like, people, you know, would constantly message me, what about this? What about that? What about this? How should I do that? And I was answering questions constantly that I should have been teaching them how to go find the answer on their own, so they can learn how to run their own business. You know what I mean? And I was enabling them, totally enabling them, because I was doing all the work for them. So I had to step back, and they learned I wasn't being mean or disrespectful, but I stopped answering their questions.
Right.
And they went and found the answer. And maybe a few hours later, I would message them and be like, hey, Susie, you know, I'm just looking at all your questions. And then they would answer me back, excited. It's okay, I figured it out on my own, you know, or whatever. And so that worked out well, because I set that boundary, and then they learned how to do the work for themselves, and their business started growing because they took ownership of it. So those two things I had to do. And again, it just helped me, it helped them too.
Right. And see, I don't have to set as hard of boundaries, I don't guess, just because, and it's not because I don't deal with that. It's just our schedule is ever changing. And then it was too much stress on me to be like, okay, from 9 to 5, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
and then I'd be like, oh crap, I've got something else in that 4:30 or something. And I can't, because I'm such a stickler in OCD whenever it comes to rules that I have laid out, but so yeah, you have to do it in your own way, and you've got to, and I get what you're totally saying, because I think we all learn too more with anything, everything, whether it's business or whatever it is. You learn more whenever you your hands are all up in it and you're getting dirty and messy. I do think so. So boundaries are everywhere. They're in business, they're in friendships, they're in family, they're in marriages, they're in siblings, they're with your kids, they're everywhere, and they're all different, and some of them are more on an emotional level than others. Business isn't going to be as emotional sometimes, and it may be at other times. It just depends, and it goes back and forth. And I do have to say, I do believe that is one of that, juggling all of the boundaries is hard.
Yeah.
And juggling is it literally is juggling. Don't you think?
Yeah, totally.
And that's where that discernment comes in again. That's where your convictions come in again. And whenever I start questioning the boundaries that I'm putting up, and they're really walls, that's whenever I've got to give it to God and say, you got to help me with this. I can't do this on my own anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's where, when the going gets tough, no matter what, whether it's with boundaries or not, you got to get on your knees and just say, I surrender.
Surrender. I was about to say, you surrender. Yep.
I surrender. I say that at least once a day, because I'm also a recovering control freak. So let's just be.
Yeah. I'm not even recovering from that. I'm still in that. So.
Well, I'm still in it. I'm just gonna, we're just gonna say I'm recovering. I'm overcoming every day.
Yes, we are overcoming it. Yes.
We're all human, and I hope that's what you have taken away from this. And we went pretty long on this, so I hope you have taken a lot away from this, and this has helped in some way. And again, please share it with your friends and family that it can help. Comment below if you're watching the replay. Please comment, because we always go back and we watch the comments. We love seeing what y'all have to say, and we just like talking to y'all.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here with this long-winded boundaries podcast, but I think it was well worth it. And I think that, hey, it helped me. What about you?
Yeah, definitely.
So if anything, it helped us. So thank you, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.